This scene concealed a disturbing secret. At first glance, everything appeared normal as a woman in red navigated her local Walmart, gathering groceries. But a closer inspection revealed a sinister presence lurking behind her. A man trailed her through the aisles, stalking her every move until she reached the cash register and exited the store. He then slipped into his car, following her out of the parking lot. The unsuspecting woman was 81-year-old Ludi Harris, a loving grandmother. Investigators reviewed multiple security camera recordings from various retirement homes, uncovering footage of the same man targeting elderly women. He donned different outfits, a pair of blue nurse scrubs, a healthcare provider's t-shirt, and even a plumber's uniform, while prowling through the communities of Dallas, Texas. In a shocking turn of events, hundreds of elderly women began to die under troubling circumstances, echoing the fate of Ludi Harris. Authorities were faced with the grim reality of 700 additional unattended deaths, raising alarms about a predator on the prowl. Yet, within this seemingly idyllic setting, a dark truth lurked. The police initially viewed the deaths that plagued the community as isolated incidents, unaware they were on the brink of uncovering a chilling serial killer. Everything changed on March 19, 2018, when 91-year-old Mary Bartell fell victim to an unseen predator within her retirement community. As Mary was rushed to the hospital that fateful day, law enforcement remained oblivious to the fact that she had just outsmarted a serial killer. Flashback to 2016, where Mary Bartell, a spirited 91-year-old, led a tranquil life in Dallas, Texas, surrounded by the comforts of her home. For 4 years, she had called Preston Place her residence, sharing it with her beloved husband, Don. Retirement communities, designed to be safe havens, provided the environment they sought. In a serene, gated community sprawling over 16 acres, residents like Mary Bartell found solace in an environment designed for safety and comfort. The atmosphere was vibrant, filled with friendly faces and a sense of belonging. It was a haven, or so they believed. They had always assured the residents that security was never an issue. Mary Bartell and her husband Don enjoyed a loving marriage that lasted 67 years, until Don's passing in 2015. Though the years have passed, Mary continues to feel the weight of his absence. Yet she remains active in her community, finding solace in her routines. Mary found comfort in her close-knit family and community. Her days were filled with attending Mass, participating in a daily exercise class, and cherishing moments with her many friends. Known for her kindness, Mary lived just around the corner from Jackie's apartment, making their bond even more special. However, on March 19, 2018, the tranquility of the morning shattered. At precisely 9:26 a.m., a 911 dispatcher in Plano received a frantic call. An elderly woman's voice pierced through the phone, trembling with fear as she identified herself from the Preston Place retirement home. "Hello, 911. What's your emergency?" The dispatcher's voice was calm, but the urgency from the caller was palpable. "We have a neighbor that we cannot awaken," Jackie explained, her heart racing. What was meant to be an ordinary day had spiraled into a nightmare. Jackie had been on her way to pick Mary up for their daily exercise class, but something felt amiss that morning. When she arrived at Mary's front door, the absence of her friend waiting outside was alarming. The door stood ajar, an ominous sign that something was terribly wrong. On that fateful day, Jackie approached Mary's door with an unsettling feeling. She pushed it open and looked inside, only to be met with a chilling sight. Mary lay completely motionless on her bed, triggering a rush of panic in Jackie as she hurried to her friend's side. In a frantic attempt to revive her, Jackie desperately shook her friend, but Mary remained unresponsive. Panic surged as Jackie dialed 911, her voice trembling as she pleaded for assistance. "We can't wake her up," she exclaimed. The operator's calm response assured her, "Okay, help is on the way." Moments later, the EMTs arrived at the apartment, their urgency palpable. They rushed to check Mary's pulse, their hearts filled with a flicker of hope as they fought against the tide of uncertainty. A police officer swiftly informed Mary's son, John Bartell, of the distressing situation. Shock engulfed John and the family, as they grappled not only with the uncertainty of Mary's survival, but also the terrifying enigma of what could have transpired. At over 90 years old, Mary was a vibrant force of nature. She exercised regularly, enjoyed an active social life, and possessed a sharp wit that belied her age. Without any significant medical issues, her sudden collapse was bewildering. The family could only wonder what had gone so terribly wrong. To the astonishment of the EMTs, Mary stirred back to life. With a flicker of awareness, she lifted her hand toward the police officer, pointing urgently to her finger. A crucial detail emerged from her gesture, one that would send a chill down the spine of everyone present. Her wedding ring was missing. John shared with investigators that Mary wore this ring constantly. It was her constant companion, even during sleep and bathing. The absence of the ring was a red flag, a sign that something was horribly amiss. Yet, beneath the surface of their fairy tale romance, a dark cloud loomed. Mary and Don, the quintessential high school sweethearts, had woven a love story that their children and grandchildren treasured. Their connection felt destined, seemingly unbreakable. But now, as Mary clung to the memories of Don, her heart was heavy with an ominous weight. Since the death of her beloved husband Don a few years prior, the ring had become a symbol of her enduring love. The Bartell family was acutely aware of how unusual it was for Mary to be without it. In a desperate search for answers, they combed through her apartment, hoping to find some trace of the precious item. However, their search yielded nothing. The wedding ring was nowhere to be found. In fact, every piece of valuable jewelry had vanished without a trace. Sergeant Brian France began to connect the dots, recalling a disturbing bulletin issued by Officer Chapman. It detailed the suspicious deaths of numerous elderly women, many of whom had passed away under mysterious circumstances, often with their belongings missing. For years, these deaths had gone unquestioned. But now, with Mary's situation, the pieces of a troubling puzzle began to emerge. A sinking feeling settled in his gut as he realized the implications of what they might be facing. Mary Bartell was rushed to the hospital, her life hanging by a thread, and with her survival came the slim hope of unraveling the truth. As investigators awaited news on Mary, they were compelled to revisit other cases that bore a chilling resemblance to hers. It was during this examination that they stumbled upon the case of Helen Lee, a victim from just 6 months earlier. It was the summer of 2017. Only 9 miles away from Mary, 82-year-old Helen Lee had spent the last 5 years thriving in the Parkview Frisco retirement community, surrounded by friends who cherished her. Above all, her granddaughter's frequent visits brought Helen immense joy. "My Grammy was the most loving, caring, and compassionate person," her granddaughter would later reflect. Helen, a dedicated seamstress for over 45 years, had embraced her retirement with open arms, her life a tapestry of love and warmth. Yet, beneath that comforting exterior, shadows loomed, foreshadowing a darkness that would soon envelop her family. Mary's granddaughter, Karen Wong, often visited her beloved Grammy. She recalled, "My Grammy was the most loving, caring, and compassionate person." For over 45 years, Helen Lee had dedicated her life to her work as a seamstress, before retiring to enjoy her life in the well-established retirement community. At a popular Texas retirement home, 90-year-old Marilyn Bixler shares a close bond with her best friend, Helen Lee. The two women, vibrant in their twilight years, often seize any opportunity to enjoy lunch and dinner together, savoring the simple pleasures of companionship. Their friendship was so deep that they lived in the same building, Marilyn on the first floor and Helen on the third. The stairwell connecting them was perpetually unlocked, devoid of any watchful video surveillance. As the calendar turned to September 1st, the atmosphere in the retirement home was one of routine tranquility. However, that tranquility would soon shatter. Within a mere few weeks, both women would be discovered lifeless in their apartments. On Sunday, September 3rd, Helen failed to attend church, a worrying absence that prompted a concern for her well-being. Her family, anxious for her safety, decided to check on her. When they entered her bedroom, they were met with a heart-wrenching sight. Helen lay still, with her beloved dog, Kane, by her side. Initially, law enforcement suggested that her death was likely due to a heart attack, and at first glance, the circumstances seemed unremarkable, leading authorities to deem their deaths as non-suspicious. After all, these were two elderly women in their late 80s, residing in a retirement community, an environment where the natural end of life is not unexpected. Authorities quickly ruled their deaths as natural causes, opting against an autopsy, leaving a lingering sense of unease in the air. But doubts began to creep in for their families. The women were found lying perfectly straight, almost as if they had been meticulously arranged. Bruises marred their arms, and a pair of glasses lay twisted, yet no one appeared to connect the dots or take action. In a desperate plea for answers, a family member confronted the police, questioning, "Do you think someone hurt my mother?" The response was dismissive. "No, she died naturally, and someone just happened to come by and rob the jewelry off her cold, dead body." The realization struck hard when they discovered that Helen's cherished ring was missing. Who stole Mom's ring? They wondered, as Helen had never taken it off her finger. As reports of new robberies surfaced, local police were compelled to dig deeper into the unsettling circumstances surrounding these deaths. They uncovered a disturbing pattern. A series of elderly women found dead under similar conditions, each missing valuable jewelry, wedding rings, gold necklaces, and even a Rolex watch. The cumulative worth of the stolen items soared to over $500,000. The timing of these disappearances alongside the deaths was too suspicious to ignore, suggesting a sinister connection. Normally, the Tradition Prestonwood facility would report perhaps 3 deaths in an entire year, yet now they faced several fatalities in just a span of 3.5 months. With the jewelry thefts echoing alarm bells, it became evident that something was deeply wrong. Between 2016 and 2018, hundreds of senior citizens' deaths were under scrutiny, each tracing back to only 4 luxury senior living facilities. The investigation revealed a shocking statistic: around 700 or more unattended deaths. For years, the management of the retirement home seemed indifferent, yet the families of the deceased were relentless. They sought answers, reaching out to Edmundo Sanchez, the community relations director at Tradition Prestonwood, determined to uncover the truth behind these tragic events. When questioned about the missing jewelry, Edmundo Sanchez's demeanor shifted dramatically. His responses became curt and indifferent, revealing a chilling disregard for the situation. "Well, these old ladies hide stuff in their underwear drawers sometimes," he commented dismissively. In response to the growing unease within the community, residents took matters into their own hands. They began posting warning flyers, alerting their neighbors about the ongoing jewelry thefts and urging them to secure their homes. At Edmundo Sanchez's residence, the police pressed him about the jewelry. His attitude shifted as he continued to provide only short, indifferent answers. The elderly residents, sensing the urgency of the situation, took it upon themselves to spread the word. They put up warning posters to inform everyone about the thefts and encouraged their peers to lock their doors. However, the retirement home management swiftly removed the posters, claiming they were unauthorized and could unnecessarily alarm the residents. It was clear that something was amiss. The community relations director announced that an elderly resident had suffered a sudden heart attack, collapsing without warning. After numerous complaints throughout the fall of 2016, detectives decided to delve deeper into the troubling events, bringing Edmundo Sanchez to the police station for questioning. Detective Allen, badge number 7025, confronted Edmundo Sanchez, inquiring about the alarming incidents. "What do you think has happened to the children?" he pressed, seeking clarity amidst the chaos. The only individuals present during the incident were the paramedics, with families claiming that their mother's jewelry had mysteriously vanished. Ms. Priute had been found deceased in her bedroom, and Edmundo recalled being ushered away from the pyramid area almost immediately. "Is there a staff meeting to discuss the ongoing issues?" Detective Allen inquired, noting the growing frustration among the staff. "We all feel like this has to stop," he added, his casual tone raising significant concerns. Local police began to harbor deeper suspicions. Sergeants sought out surveillance footage from all the retirement homes. To their shock, they discovered that camera coverage was severely limited, particularly at Preston Place, where the 3rd and 4th floors were void of any monitoring. This significant gap in security meant that numerous doors and exits went unmonitored, creating an alarming opportunity for someone to enter and exit unnoticed. Sergeant Davis voiced his suspicions, stating, "Something is fishy. Something about this is not right." The police pursued every lead, questioning the paramedics present at the scene. However, without physical evidence or solid suspects, they quickly hit a dead end. The paramedics were cleared of any wrongdoing, having only touched the body, which remained covered. With no new evidence to pursue, the case was deemed closed, leaving lingering questions in its wake. No arrests had been made in the unfolding mystery, but everything changed on March 19, 2018. 91-year-old Mary Bartell was rushed to the hospital, her case eerily mirroring those of the previous 2 years. This time, however, her survival could unlock crucial answers. Answers that might finally guide the police closer to the truth. I thought I would die. I'm not afraid to die, but I can't die that way. These haunting words echoed in Mary's mind as she sat in her apartment at Preston Place Retirement Home, typing an email to her children on that seemingly ordinary Monday morning. At approximately 8:00 a.m., a sudden, insistent knock shattered the calm. I heard this very insistent rapping at the door, Mary recalled. Assuming it was a friend or a trusted staff member, she unlocked the door, ready to greet her visitor. But as the lock clicked open, a tall man forced his way inside. Panic surged through Mary as she struggled to keep the door closed, but he overpowered her without hesitation. It was then she noticed something chilling. The man was wearing green rubber gloves. I knew instantly when I saw those 2 green rubber gloves that my life was in grave danger, Mary later recounted. He commanded her, "Don't fight me, lie on the bed," as he seized a pillow from her bed and pressed down with terrifying force. Mary felt the life being squeezed from her frail body. The overpowering strength of the intruder left her no chance to resist. In mere moments she was outmatched, her struggle against the man futile. In a desperate attempt to call for help, Mary reached for her life alert pendant around her neck, but her arm was pinned down. Darkness enveloped her as she suddenly lost consciousness. As fate would have it, the door creaked open again, this time revealing one of Mary's friends, arriving to take her to their morning workout. What the friend found was horrifying. Mary lay motionless, unresponsive, contorted in an unnatural position. Something was dreadfully wrong. The friend rushed to call 911, praying for a miracle. Miraculously, against all odds, Mary opened her eyes and gasped for breath. With urgency, she provided the police with a detailed description of her attacker, igniting a thorough investigation into the assault. Armed with Mary's precise account, detectives canvassed potential witnesses, including every employee at the retirement home. Their hard work began to bear fruit as they uncovered multiple reports of a suspicious individual seen lurking on the premises. This individual matched the description provided by Mary to a T. He had been spotted several times on the 4th floor, claiming to be checking for pipe leaks. Standing at 5 feet 10 inches tall, weighing around 180 pounds, he was dressed impeccably in a clean suit and carried a satchel. On the very day of Mary's attack, a concerned citizen had called the police, reporting a stranger loitering by his car in the retirement home parking lot for hours. This witness had taken note of the vehicle's license plate. When the police traced the car, they discovered it was registered to a man named Billy Shamir, a 46-year-old who was now at the center of the investigation. The man perfectly matched Mary Bartell's description. He appeared to work in the medical field, or so it seemed. After reviewing security footage, investigators noted his adaptability. At first glance, he resembled a nurse, a plumber, a maintenance worker, and everything in between. Detectives began to piece together his tactics. The man gained entry to facilities by donning random uniforms from his previous jobs and manipulating doors. As they scrutinized his actions further, they uncovered more troubling behaviors. His criminal record revealed DUI charges, but the most alarming entry indicated that Kemmermere had been arrested for trespassing at a retirement home in 2016. He had pretended to be a maintenance worker to gain access to the vulnerable elderly residents. If this suspect was indeed a killer, he possessed access to medicines, keys, and a host of potential victims, all while walking freely among them. What police understood was chilling. He altered his appearance, jobs, vehicles, and identities with alarming proficiency. With an unsettling ease, he navigated through 4 different retirement homes, evading capture by the authorities. Tasked with the impossible job of apprehending someone who seemed to blend into the surroundings, all resources were concentrated on tracking this elusive figure at all costs. It was now March 20th, 2018, one day after Mary's harrowing attack. The suspicious vehicle from the previous day reappeared, this time pulling into a nearby Walmart. Only 5.7 miles away from Mary's apartment, the Walmart was a hub of activity, equipped with security cameras capable of monitoring the area for hours. At 2:30 p.m., the footage captured Billy Kemmermere walking through the store. A closer look revealed a disturbing pattern. He was following one person in particular, an elderly woman dressed in red. For over 20 minutes, he mirrored her movements, stalking her through the aisles with predatory intent. As the woman completed her shopping and returned to her car, blissfully unaware, She did not notice the suspicious vehicle or the man following her out of the parking lot. It was terrifying to consider that one could be going about their day, only to be shadowed home by such a figure. By 5:50 p.m., hours later on the same day, police finally spotted Billy's vehicle. The driver matched their descriptions perfectly. Police tailed the vehicle as it entered an apartment complex. The suspect halted in front of a dumpster, exited his car, and discarded something unidentified inside. While some officers continued to follow him, others approached the dumpster to investigate. They retrieved the items he had left behind and made a shocking discovery: a beautiful, bright red jewelry box. It appeared to have been broken into. Some valuables were left behind, but most importantly, they found an old name tag inside the box. The name read Ludie Van Harris. A quick search revealed an 81-year-old woman living less than 2 miles away. It was now a race against time. A crucial decision loomed ahead. In a race against time, officers arrived at the residence for a welfare check. A concerned neighbor approached, inquiring if everything was all right. The officer reassured him, stating, "Yes, sir, we just need to check the welfare of the lady who lives here." The neighbor responded, "Well, she should be fine. I saw her at the post office at 4:30. Since the case fell within their jurisdiction, the police rushed to the home. However, as they burst through the door, a chilling scene awaited them. They were too late. The lifeless body of an elderly woman lay inside. Despite the neighbor's earlier reassurance, the police found themselves facing a grim reality. They were too late. The body discovered was that of an elderly woman, confirming their worst fears. The victim matched the description of Lucy T. Harris. Family members were swiftly notified. Lucy's granddaughter, Karen Wong, sensed something was terribly wrong when her father unexpectedly picked her up from school one day. "My dad picked me up from the university. He immediately burst into tears, saying, 'Karen, I have to tell you something.'" She was beautiful, always loved dressing up, and had a smile that could light up a room. The tragedy left Karen grappling with an unanswerable question. Why did this happen to her beloved grandmother? Fear gripped her as she began to triple-check her locks, ensuring no one was following her. Initially, Lucy's apartment showed no signs of forced entry. At first glance, everything appeared undisturbed. Yet the earlier discovery of Lucy's jewelry box discarded in a dumpster intensified the urgency of the hunt for a suspected serial killer. The police, hot on the trail of the suspect, took decisive action, arresting Billy Kemmermeer outside his apartment complex in Dallas. All evidence pointed to him as the one who had taken Lucy T. Harris's life just an hour prior to his arrest. Reports indicated that Billy Kemmermeer was now in custody at the Dallas County Jail, facing a capital murder charge. He was swiftly taken to the police station and placed in an interrogation room, where he feigned innocence and confusion. When confronted with the damning evidence, he maintained his composure. Detectives laid out irrefutable proof of his guilt: the statements from neighbors, several cell phones and gloves discovered in his vehicle and apartment. Additionally, police uncovered a trove of jewelry belonging to previous victims, linking him to multiple suspicious deaths. In an effort to unravel more of the mystery, police visited local pawn shops and jewelry sellers, armed with a picture of Kemmermeer, hoping someone would recognize their prime suspect and provide further evidence. One owner at the Diamond and Gold Exchange immediately recognized Kemmermeer as a familiar face. Security footage showed him frequently visiting, laughing, and shaking hands, presenting himself as both a buyer and seller of jewelry. Billy Kemmermeer had a sinister knack for acquiring jewelry, legally no less, through various pawn shops, diamond stores, and even online platforms like eBay. It is estimated that he profited over $100,000 from these sales, a figure the police suspect is just the tip of the iceberg. In April 2022, after the first trial for Lucy T. Harris ended in a mistrial, the second attempt to bring Billy Kemmermeer to justice began in earnest. This time, the focus was squarely on her murder, a case that had gripped the community. Despite Kemmermeer's alleged connection to at least 18 other murders, the trial commenced with urgency. Prosecutors were convinced that the evidence against him in the murder of Lucy T. Harris was the strongest they had encountered. He stands accused of killing her just an hour before his apprehension. As the courtroom buzzed with anticipation, the inquiry began. Counsel inquired how Kemmermeer would plead, to which the jury heard a resounding plea of not guilty. In a striking commentary, the prosecutor described Kemmermeer as an evil little man, devoid of a soul, with beady little eyes. This case was a chilling narrative of stalking, smothering, and theft. The prosecution's case centered on the events leading up to Kemir Mir's arrest. He was accused of attacking 91-year-old Mary Bartel. On the first day of trial, her harrowing testimony echoed through the courtroom. Her powerful recounting of the terrifying ordeal painted a stark and horrific picture of the evil she had confronted. It was perhaps the most compelling evidence presented. Mary Bartel detailed her experience with chilling clarity, and in the courtroom, the families of other victims listened intently, grappling with the grim reality of what their own loved ones may have suffered. Mary's children felt an immense pride in their mother's courageous stand. On April 28, 2022, after only 45 minutes of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Billy Kemir Mir was convicted of capital murder. The foreman announced, having taken the jury of 12 men, they found him guilty. The sentence was life in prison without the possibility of parole. Lucy T. Harris's family exhaled a collective sigh of relief, feeling that justice had been served for their mother and grandmother. They found solace in the conviction, knowing that Kemir Mir would finally face the consequences of his horrific actions. They expressed hope that their ordeal would awaken the community to take responsibility. Families of the 22 victims linked to Kemir Mir were invited back to court the following week to present their victim impact statements, a moment where they could confront him directly. For the first time, the judge permitted all victims connected to Billy Kemir Mir to testify. With heavy hearts, families prepared to hold up large photographs of their loved ones. One voice among them stated, "My mother was Mary Nelson." Mary Nelson was a beacon of vitality, healthy, vibrant, kind, and full of life. She had instilled in her daughter the importance of seeking the good in everyone. But on October 7, 2022, that light was extinguished, leaving a void that echoed throughout the lives she touched. Billy Kemir Mir, after a relentless pursuit of justice, was convicted for a second time. This verdict ensured that he would never harm anyone again. Today, the legacy of Mary Bartel lives on, not only through her family, but also through the families of all the other victims. Tragically, she passed away peacefully in 2020, just days before her 93rd birthday. Mary is profoundly missed. Yet, her life stands as a testament to the fact that courage knows no age. Her memory is cherished by all who knew her, and her heroism continues to inspire many.